WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American in Germany, tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. Today I have something from the Maltman, yummy. 7 years old, ooh, young. Campbeltown, oh, Madeira cask finish, ooh. So it is Whiskybase number 192713. This was distilled in April of 2014, bottled in June of 2021, 7 years old with an 8-month-old Madeira finish. Cask number 20, 321 bottles came from this. So if you do the math, you get 224.7 liters. A normal barrique from Madeira is 225 liters. Yay! So they lost in 8 months 0.3 liters. Maybe it was a little bit bigger. 700 milliliters, 54.9%, and about 64 euros. What I really liked as I put the bottle back together here is there was a tiny little here tab I could pull. I pulled off the wax, which was very, very nice. And then I had this nice little wax cap here that I just unfolded. And then you have the bottle, which I thought was superbly done. Thank you very much, Maltman, for that. All right, where does this whiskey come from? No one knows, to be honest. So many people consider this, because it's a blended malt, a teaspooned whiskey. Now, before I talk about that, let's read the back of the label here. It says, "This fine whiskey," I hate it when they have the adjective in front of the whiskey. This great whiskey, this excellent whiskey, this fine whiskey, this whatever whiskey, superb whiskey, from Campbeltown was finished in a Madeira cask for 8 months. Okay, so they basically took an 7-year-old whiskey, finished it then for 8 months in a Madeira cask. And no, they took a 6-year-old whiskey and finished it for 8 months, and now it's a 7-year-old whiskey. A nice aroma of, oh, don't read that. All right, so now what is a teaspoon whiskey? I don't want to read the tasting notes before I taste. A teaspoon whiskey is basically used when a distillery wants to give up or sell one of their casks or a parcel of the casks, and they don't want to give them the privilege or the opportunity to tell where it's from. So imagine this was from Springbank. This would cost much more than the 64 euros it's going for. All right, so if there was a Springbank on the label, it would say, oh, mystery Islay, oh, mystery Campbeltown, whatever. And that's going to cost a lot more to have those naming rights. Same thing with Glen Scotia, same thing with Kilcare. At the moment, there are only 3 distilleries, and in Campbeltown, there used to be 40 to 60. They all basically made illicit juice because it's so far away from the capital, very difficult to get there, that they could send it off directly with the harbor that they have in Campbeltown all over the world, to Ireland, to America, to Canada, and wherever else, and make a lot of money doing illegal distilling there without paying the taxes. Oh well, all that died. If everything goes right, I will be in Campbeltown in May of 2022, the day before I go over to Islay and the Mecca, the paradise for peated single malt Scotch fans. Now, a teaspoon whiskey actually takes either literally the teaspoon and pours it in of a different distillery. And therefore, it's no longer single malt. Single malt, one distillery, malt 100% malted barley, single malt. If you have 2 distilleries, and I don't care if the sister distilleries or from someplace else, that changes it. It's no longer a single malt. It's a blended malt. And that's what this is. Now, I actually did the math here. Now, this has, as I said, 321 bottles. 321 times 0.4 turns into 224.7 liters. 224.7 liters equals up to 2,247 milliliters. Now, what is a teaspoon? A teaspoon is 5 milliliters. So if you do the math, you add a teaspoon to the cask, you actually still have 99.99577% purity. I'm going to repeat that number. By adding 5 milliliters teaspoon to the whiskey, the cask, you still have 99.9957723193725 purity. No one, and I don't care if you are the king of single malts, no one can taste after an 8-month Madeira cask maturation that 0 0.0043% addition of something else. But legally, it's no longer single malt. And so I have heard stories that they don't actually put the teaspoon in there. It's not even worth the effort. So I've heard many, many stories that we just label it as such so that the new independent bottlers or the independent bottlers cannot use the name of the distillery. And I think that's about right. All right, so feel free to add your teaspoons in there if you want, but hey, that's the way that is. What am I going to compare it to? It's always the question here. I'm going to compare it to a 10-year-old Springbank. Now, my 10-year-old Springbank is here from 2010. So it has, so it's from the 14th of November 2020. Did I say 2010? 2020. And it has the bottle code 20/129. All right, so 2020. Now, we and my German community did a, it's called the Mega Single Malt tasting. I can't pour and talk at the same time. What we did is we took 6 different regions. We took the Lowlands, Highlands, Speyside, Campbeltown, Islay, and the Islands, and we voted on the best 6 whiskeys from each region. So online we voted, and then I sent people, up to 48 people each time, samples of those 6 whiskeys. And then we blind tasted them. Now, the very last thing we did in December was Campbellton. Why? Because I had to wait for the new delivery of the new bottles from Springbank. And luckily they arrived literally days before I had to send out the packages, which I'm so thankful for. And what happened was that we had a Springbank 10, we had a Long Row peated, we had a Kilkerran 12, and then we had 3 Glen Scotias as well. We had the 15, we had the unpeated, and the peated. I think they're both 10 years old. And they were all blind, so people didn't know what they were tasting. And at the very end, which one lost? The very loser, and everyone was in agreement with it except for one person. Kilkerran. What was the 5th? It was Springbank. What was number 4? It was Long Row. And so it means the 3 Glen Scotias were voted blindly much better. 15-1, by the way. Much better than all the things that here Mitchell and Son and Mitchell Incorporated, J and A Mitchell and Co. Limited produced. Now, many people were like, it can't be right. Jason, you fudged the results. They're like, here, look at the results. You voted, not me. And so on. And people just didn't want to believe that that could happen because people love Springbank. And yet in the blind tasting, it just absolutely lost. But then people started comparing the 2021 version with the 2020. It was like, oh, the 2020 is so much better, and the 2021 is a little off, and so on. Of course, that was just one of those slips in the batch variations, and so on and so on. It's like, wow, we can make all the excuses you want. Kilkerran lost, Springbank lost, and even Long Row lost. And it was just like, okay, maybe they just don't do well in blind tastings. And people start having all these theories to support their view why Springbank has to be the best. Maybe this is Springbank. Probably it's Glen Scotia. I can hardly imagine it's Kilkerran. I don't know why they'd give up Kilkerran casks. They don't have enough themselves. Why give them up to an independent bottler? They don't have enough Springbank either, so who knows? All right, on the nose, I like this nose. That Madeira cask did a great job. There's a little bit like an old... okay, we have the cultivated strawberries and we have the forest strawberries. These tiny little berries. I used to eat them as a teenager, child, whatever. You go out in the forest and you find in May and June, you'd find these little tiny, they were so delicious. And that's what I'm getting here. A little bit of peaches as well. More of canned peaches, vanilla. Very nice. There's a little tiny mew of maybe smoke in there, but not much. Over here. This smells like Campbellton. This smells like Springbank. It's got a little bit of a machine oil moment going on there. They malt their own barley, and the entire time I keep on thinking, do they have like a machine that does that, and maybe it drips oil sometimes under the barley? I don't know where that machine oil comes from. That funk we talk about sometimes. All right, good. Sorry for mentioning that. Now every time you think, could that be true? Probably not. Now, I am at 54.9. I am at 46% over here. I know there's a big difference, so let's try this. I cannot deny its youth. There's heat. There's heat, there's youthfulness in the alcohol here. Would it have been better older? I hope so. I think so. But that Madeira cask is doing a good job of entering in a certain amount of sweetness, a certain amount of berry, a certain amount of red fruit there that I like. Now, it says here on the back, a nice aroma of pears and orange peel. The palate is lovely with some subtle smoke. Okay, they said itself. Fudge with some icing, sugar, and spice. The finish and warming with a warming with good length. I would have said long lasting, and some apricot jam and buttery notes. Now, there's a difference between sometimes warming and getting some type of antacid reflux. Some whiskeys create this antacid reflux. And while doing our blind tasting, and everyone thought that the Springbank things were at the front and the Glen Scotia at the back, they were all talking about the back whiskeys giving them an antacid reflux. And it was like, yeah, okay, you just, and then it creates this, and then in the evening, it just kind of repeats on you, and you get this antacid going down here, and so on. It's just not nice. And it was very, very interesting that all three of them that created that feeling were the Springbanks. And the Glen Scotia didn't have it at all. And yet, in the German-speaking world, it's a known fact, I'm doing a lot of air quotes here, that Glen Scotia produces this anti-acid reflux in your esophagus here. And it was very interesting. It's like, I'm not surely sure they do that. And yet, I still think this is Glen Scotia. So maybe they do that sometimes. All right, very good. So I'm going to put a little bit of water in here and see what happens. I'm going to try to dilute it down to about 46%. I like the nose. I really, really like this nose. This nose is a C+ for me. Maybe even a B-. It's got some caramel. It's got some maltiness. It's got that red berries. It's got a lot going for it here. Nice. Cheers. I took it down to 46%. Nice, 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 nice. A little bit of heat still. I prefer this at 46%. If I go back to the cask strength, I get a little bit of a mineral moment I did not get before. But with water diluted down to 46, 48%, I really like this. This is something I'd be willing to pay 50 to 60 euros for. What did I pay? 64. So it's almost okay. I'm going to give this a solid B for the mouth feel. With water, it's more of a solid C, a solid C. With water, it's almost a C+, and the nose, it is a C+. Without water, it's a C-. So solid C. Value for money, for this experience, for this region, for this what I'm getting. I would like to maybe compare it to Victoriana, which I don't have at the moment, so sorry. I'm going to give this a C-. Now, 64 euros for a 7-year-old whiskey is a lot of money. My rule of thumb is 10 euros per year, so 7 years old, 70 euros. It's a little bit below that, but still, it's a 7-year-old whiskey. I mean, and many, many producers in Scotland would be ashamed to put a 7 on their bottle, but thank you, Maltmen, for doing it. This is something that's slowly disappearing over here in Germany. The 321 bottles took 5 months almost to get rid of them. But yet they're going, and also the Netherlands got quite a few bottles, and they're still on sale at many, many different places there. All right, just as a comparison, the Springbank, cleanse my palate. Cheers. I like this better. This has a funkiness to it. This has more smokiness to it. It has a little bit of that funk. I would call that machine room type of moment going on there. with the smoke. It's not bad, but I prefer this better. I'm not a great fan of Springbank. Kill me now, unsubscribe, so on. I just say it like it is. There's more in the world because I don't buy it. Okay? Good. Thank you very much. And I have a bottle here in front of me. WhiskyJason, whiskey from the viewpoint of American and Germany, tasting rare, exotic whiskeys, giving this a C+, value for money, C-. What is your favorite Campbelltown product? Is it a Springbank? Is it a Kilkerran? Is it a Glen Scotia? Is it the 10? Is it the 12 cask rank? Which batch? Is it the 15? Is it the 18? Is it the 21? Is it the 25? Never even had that one myself. Kilkerran, there's a 16, there's a 12, there's the 8 cask strengths that have been released almost every year now. There's a lot of things, and still there's not enough. We have a Springbank Kilkerran shortage, at least over here in Europe at the moment. Almost impossible to find. As soon as they appear in a shop, they're sold within minutes and hours. If it takes an hour, someone's not sharing the link with their friends, because that's when it goes in the groups and people just go crazy and click, 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 buy, buy, buy. All right, so what's your favorite Campbelltown product? Thank you very much for liking, subscribing, sharing, telling others, and I'm probably sure you'll never see this bottle, but if you do, it's called the Meadowside 7-year-old Campbeltown Region. Cask number 20, 321 bottles, and it's 45.9%. And it is Whiskybase number, wrong window here. Whiskybase number 192713. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.